Honestly, this year's been amazing. I've been to Palm Springs, Brazil, India, going to Calgary next week, Spain. Like, we are healthy in that department.
Amazing.
My
Yeah.
name is Rachel, and I pivoted my business so hard. I once ran a co working space, and now I'm a florist.
Welcome to the XO Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Rishma Welji. This is the podcast about emotional resilience and intentional living for ambitious, growth oriented people. Definitely, you made big pivots in your life
Yeah.
multiple times. I guess start with how your career started off and then a few pivots that went along the way.
Okay. The program I studied was called New Media. So this was learning how to create art using technology. I went into this program because I wanted to be creative, and I found pretty early on with the kind of ways that we were expressing ourselves and learning within the program that I immediately started adopting this persona where I would say, I do not identify as an artist. I'm more on the curatorial side of things. I like to bring people together, and I like to be an organizer, a mastermind, if you will. And then from there, I did a lot of freelance freelance opportunities. I kind of found my way into writing a very specific niche, especially for the time too, was writing social media captions for different brands. And it was at this position where I found a really fantastic mentor very early on. It was just kind of fate. And at that point, she was kind of like this great figure in my life. And she opened my eyes into the world of like remote working. You can work anywhere in the world. So she really kind of like led the way for me of kind of thinking outside the box and thinking about your career as something that you do for yourself. Like, you get to decide how each day works for you. And within that kind of period of time, let's say that's roughly 3 years of freelancing, working independently, I was finding myself working in coffee shops all over the city. And at first this was so cool. It was like, I could work anywhere, da 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 da. I would say the romance kind of fell apart at some point because it was just me and my computer alone in a cafe or alone at home. I had this opportunity to work for one of my contractors full time. I was like, great, I don't need to make any life decisions. I can just like have someone else tell me what to do and everything's gonna be sorted. It was gonna be the first time I was getting like a real salary, and I was excited. I bought a couch before even like the job started because I thought that's what grown-ups do. And it was kind of like the record rip of my life because a week before I was supposed to start, contract signed, everything. This contractor said, actually, never mind. We want you to continue freelancing. We're not going to have you go full time. It was just a mess, but it really was a blessing in disguise. So I really thought, okay, what do I want to do with my life? Or this junction in my life. We have a quote unquote lemon. It's time to make some lemonade out of this. And I scrolled back on my notes in my phone that I had written like years previous of like imagining some sort of like collective, cool, interesting space for people to gather. And that's where I decided I'm going to open a co-working space. That's what I want to do. And I mean, it's amazing the amount of delusion that at that age I was able to move myself forward and do this. So pretty much a year later, I opened up my co-working space, Make Lemonade, as you know. It was a great way for me to be creative, and I loved interior design and, bring this space together, get to connect with other incredible people, specifically women, because it was a space geared towards women in business. It was kind of like just like having a collection of mentors like in my space. And I mean, I'm kind of glazing over how much work this all was, but for the sake of this conversation, I'll keep it kind of brief. So then the pandemic happens. Of course, that's kind of like the next little like record rip of like, uh-oh, things are shifting. Just when I had got to the point of like, I think things are really working. Finally, the vision is here. And the universe, of course, had other plans. So we switched to an online model, running it in person, online. And I ended up deciding to close the space. And I thought to myself, I'm going to run the online co-working community because it was bumping and thriving at the time. I'm going to run it full time. That's what I'm going to do. And I thought I would be happy. And then it was probably a month or two in of only having just the online community, and the thing happened again. It was me alone and my computer. Sure, I had a bigger network. I had a lot more experiences. But I was like, this isn't how I want to be spending my days. I remember when I started my business, I wanted to spend as least amount of time on my laptop as possible. So this was near the end of 2021, and I saw an article about a woman who was working corporate banking, left her job to become a florist. And it kind of piqued a little interest in me. I thought, that's interesting. That's cool. So I found a couple of floristry workshops in the city, thought, that's cool. Let's see how I go. And I had a lot of fun.
We went to one together.
That's right. That's right. We went to one together. Oh my gosh. And I think when we did that, I was more like, I think this is where I want to be going. So when I went to a few of the workshops, I looked up, okay, what are some like floristry schools? Like, how do you get into this? One of the florists in the early workshops I took, she offered me a freelance position, and I learned about this whole network of freelancers in the floral industry, and it just felt like this beautiful, easy way to like get your feet wet, get paid to learn, and it was just awesome. And what was happening is I was still running the online community, and I was like venturing into something new. And I went, oh no, like now I need to tell people about what I want to do. So then flash forward a couple of months, I decide I'm closing the co-working community. I gave myself a runway of an entire year to close the community because that was like my only income, while also diving more into the world of floristry. And so now it's been officially 3 years since I've been doing floristry full time, and majority of my days are spent either chatting with potential floristry clients or working with flowers, and my life is just totally different, but I'm a million times happier for it.
I have so many questions for you. Okay, first of all, is it true that you almost sold your business before COVID?
That's a great question. Yes, it was in like the first, I think it was only a few, like let's say under a year, I had an inquiry and a bit of wine and dining that happened with another co-working community, not WeWork, but they were a big international co-working brand, and they wanted to basically me to replicate Make Lemonade around the world. And it was all big and shiny and exciting, but at that time I was like, I just got my feet wet. Like I just rolled up my sleeves. I'm not ready to do any of that.
Yeah, I know you love what you do, and I'm so happy that you do. But I think it takes a lot of emotional roller coastering to get there.
Yeah, I mean, I glazed over my story pretty quickly because I know there's a lot of steps. But what I haven't talked about is how much uncertainty I felt through all of it.
Yeah, so I want to pick apart just a couple of moments, like even having the opportunity to sell your business and then thinking, no, I've just gotten started. I'm so excited to build this from the ground up by myself and to make it into something, and then to be hit with the pandemic where physical spaces are not what you want to be in, and that's your whole business is a physical space.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
how was that experience for you?
Yeah. I mean, I think the other big part of why, of course, having the opportunity to sell the business sounded really enticing, but the reality is they wanted to buy me too. It would be me managing all of these global spaces, which again, it sounds very cool, but I'm working for somebody else. And a big reason why I did what I did is because I wanted to continue carving my own path and calling my own shots. I couldn't even imagine what it would have looked like if I was responsible for multiple spaces around the world, let alone just the one in Toronto.
Yeah, for sure. How did you feel those first few months of COVID when you're trying to figure out how do I keep this afloat?
Yeah, oh my gosh. I will also say that I understand business so much more now because of everything I have gone through. I think those first couple of years, I was so young, so naive, very fortunate to have a lot of support from my family and mentors in my life. But how did it feel? I honestly just felt really helpless, and it took me a long time to divest from the feeling that the quote unquote failure of my first business model was not my fault. That COVID was an unpredictable thing that no business, no human around the world like had any control around. So I felt there was a lot of like personal blame throughout the entire process of like, am I making the right decision or not? And also having a very real understanding of like, I have to pay so much money every single month. So a lot of it was like, whatever we can do to make money.
Yeah, you have to get scrappy and very creative. And in a way, I think that necessitated creativity. Like you probably wouldn't have thought of it had you not had to pay for your rent every month.
Yes, yes.
I talk a lot about reinvention and I guess pivoting too, but really just being happy with your life. It just happens more so when a life change happens or when we want to make a life change or a mentality change. And you mentioned a couple of things there where, you know, you had to sort of separate that self-blame. And I think a lot of us look back on decisions that we made and we think, oh, if I had done it this way, oh, this was my fault, I should have done it another way. I think it's a natural reaction, and I think it's often we think we have to juggle everything so well and we have to do everything so perfectly. But I think a lot of the problems in terms of moving forward is because we're looking backwards with that self-criticism. Did you have that experience?
There was a lot of doubt and uncertainty. I think what's easier now that I work independently, I don't have the responsibilities, the overhead is so much lower than it was before. So specifically during the time of the pandemic, I had a full-time employee that I was worried about. I had a huge overhead with the rent. And then my business model was all about uplifting and supporting other women in business. So if I had doubts or fears, it was like, we can't talk about this. This is not a part of the process. And it's interesting because, of course, the more I talked about the real things that were going on, everyone relates a lot more. It was such a hard time.
It makes sense too. Like even, you know, when I was in clinical practice, I mean, there's certain things you don't share, obviously, for professional reasons, but also I was very careful about how much I shared about my personal life because, of course, you want to make it about them. They're coming to you with their problems. And so there is that that professionalism that you're trying to maintain, which makes sense to me. And then it becomes more isolating because now you're going through struggles and you don't have anyone to really open up to about it.
Yeah, yeah, totally. What was nice about during that time was, I mean, this was a global phenomenon. Like everybody was going through this. So you could talk about some of the struggles.
Yeah, let's talk about your more recent pivot into floristry. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Floristry. Because that's a big shift, like moving from in-person co-working space to an online co-working space and then to flowers. Is this something that has been a passion of yours for a long time? Like, how did you come to this?
Yeah. I know it really is. And actually, one of the hardest things was telling my community this is what I'm doing now. And I made the conscious decision to keep operating, pivoting into floristry under the same business name. And the reason I did that was because I was like, I've worked so hard to build this community, build this reputation, let alone all the other little things like my bank account is under Make Lemonade, the email, everything. It was like, this is just, it's going to be so much work, so much paperwork to start a whole new business. So that was part of it. What was also difficult during this pivot too was like making it make sense to my community. I think that was optics, marketing, like what is this saying? I'm very grateful because I built such a wonderful, open, understanding community. So they thought, heck yeah, like let's go for it. And I got a lot of my very first clients from my community too. I have always loved color, design. What I haven't talked about is that my degree from university is a fine arts degree, fine arts, new media, but it's an arts degree. So there was a portion of me that was feeling very like, oh, this feels weird. Am I allowed to say I'm an artist? And then my friends who I went to school would say, you literally have a piece of paper that says this. So during this transition into floristry, it was really about a step into understanding more about who I am and living fuller and closer to my truth. And what is like the other kind of beautiful thing is in these past couple of years, I've picked up a paintbrush. I've started like painting on canvas, and I'm starting to apply to shows and just continue that evolution. There was a deep knowing when I went into floristry that I knew this was not the be all end all. I knew it was part of the transition. It was a initiation into exploring more of my creativity. But I've really realized that it's not just about, okay, the next evolution is painting. It's more so of a complement. The reality is floristry work is so much labor. It is unlike anything I ever understood. We have to be at the wholesalers to pick up our flowers before the crack of dawn. You'll be picking up hundreds and hundreds of bunches of flowers. You have to process them. Any event, whether it's a wedding, a workshop, a brand experience, flowers take more than whatever needs to be put on the table. Not to mention the freelance help that you need to hire. There's a lot of things, and I've really enjoyed exploring the painting side of things where the costs are so much lower, and not just from that practical side, but it's just me. That's it. It requires a different set of effort muscles.
Yeah, for sure. And you're exploring, like what I think is cool about this is that you're exploring what you love and what drives you, but you're also sort of evolving your business model and your lifestyle, really. Like you're going into a career for the career. Obviously, there are practical aspects of it, which every person in a career knows. Like you have to think about how much money you're making and how much time you're working, but then also you have to think about your lifestyle and what you would like to
Yes.
do with that. And part of the reason you love working on your own is so that you have that flexibility and you can travel and you can take the day off or whatever it is that you want to do.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And, whenever I tell people that I work with flowers, they go, "Oh my gosh, that's my retirement goal is to open up a floral shop or whatever." And sometimes I say, "Oh, that's great." But other times I'm like, "It's a lot of work." And sometimes, yeah, I go, "Oh, it must be so lovely to work with flowers all day." Sometimes it is. Other times it's just a job. This is just a means to move me forward. And, sometimes people choose the flowers that I never would choose or the colors that don't really appeal to me. But that's a part of doing business. And I think I'm able to think this way now because I am almost 8 years into running my own business. I'm older, I have different life goals and have different experiences behind me. These are all things that you don't know until you live through it and think about your future in a different way. Not to mention, too, my body operates a whole different way than it used to as well.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a reality for a lot of us. Can I ask you about I want to call it courage. Like I've also made a lot of pivots and people use this word a lot. It's a risk, to start something
Yeah.
new and to do something very different and something that maybe other people don't really know how to do or would never choose for themselves.
Yeah.
And so you're sort of going off on this lonely path that's a bit risky. Like how did you kind of come to that?
It was when I decided, okay, I'm going to close the online co-working community. Where I think a lot of my courage has come from is my parents' support. They have just been ultimate mentors, support systems in my life. The older I get, the more friends I make. Learning about everybody's family dynamics, I really understand what a gem of a upbringing I've had and what a beautiful support system I've had. And on top of that, my parents have really given me the runway to have a financially supportive future as well. So there is that very real aspect of when I have been able to take chances and take big risks, I know what my quote unquote rock bottom looks like. Mentally, emotionally, I may feel awful, and rock bottom for everybody looks different, and that is a really horrible place to be. But I've always known I'm always going to have a bed, I'm always going to have food, and that is that allows me to take some wild courage. But I've really also understood that like I have exposed myself vulnerably in so many ways, and very publicly a lot of ways too. I've been very lucky that I'm very in tune with my own intuition. I've always really known right from wrong. What does it really feel like? And what was happening for me when I decided to close the online portion too was it really felt like shit. I was just like, I can't be doing this forever. I'm just not living in alignment. I know I need to be doing something more for myself. So I think where a lot of the other courage comes from is, oh no, this feels really scary. This feels like, yeah, I can't believe it. That felt really hard to kind of reconcile with those feelings and go, well, I can't be the leader anymore. I have to follow what I want, because that nudge is stronger. It's saying we need to fill our own cup now.
I think a lot of our choices and even the way we live get shaped by what we think we should be doing. If I spend a lot of time internally figuring out my emotions, figuring out what I want, what's right for my family, what's right for me and my, physical, emotional, mental health, and I realize, okay, this is what I need for my life. And then I step outside and I see other people, and then they say, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? Are you sure you want to do that? How could you do this? And it's so hard to separate those two things.
It is, because the outside is very real. There's a lot of other conditions that we live under that we can't ignore, that rent is due. We can't ignore that groceries cost money.
Yeah, there's the desire, and then there's also the reality, right? And we have to juggle both. We have to juggle the desire and the reality, and I think that's the space that we don't often talk about. I want to circle back, just sort of thinking back, when you felt like everything was working out in your business, sometimes it feels successful. And it's like, okay, I want this community to be big. I want this community to make this much money, whatever it is. Or I want, my floral business to be creative, and I want it to bring me joy, whatever. Can you talk a little bit about how your definition of success may have changed over time?
Ooh, that is, I think, a moving target, right? It's always changing. I think one of the best definitions, I wrote it down somewhere, and it was something like, success to me is loving who I am, what I do, and how I do it. There's, big difference between, what is successful for the business. It was like, a business's goal is to make money. So the business has a specific set of goals that needs to happen. As the operator of a business, there's a lot more emotions and confusion and whatnot. I think right now, I have a new kind of dream vision of where I would like to go. And I would say right now I'm living in a beta version of that. It's like all the pieces are technically there, but it's not exactly how I would like it to be. But I know once I kind of get to that feeling, new goals, new things are going to crop up. I want to make sure I enjoy my days and I feel good. I can look in the mirror every night before I go to bed and feel satisfied with myself, the decisions I made, or go, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done X, Y, and Z, but that's okay. I'll try tomorrow. Yeah, I mean, it's always evolving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of times we don't realize that it can evolve. Right? Like
Mm-hmm.
we grow up with a certain definition of success. You have to reach a certain level, you have to get a certain
Yeah.
promotion, you have to make a certain amount of money, and then we realize we're not happy, and then we have to sort of reshift. But then we still think that success is measured by all of those things, and it's sort of
Yeah.
a reminding of ourselves of, oh, actually success means something differently to me now. Like for me, I can say, success is more around my health and my energy levels and my ability to be with my family and all of these things that are in this moment in time really important to me. But
Mm-hmm.
also my brain keeps thinking about, oh, this is how success was defined for so many years for me
Yeah.
and by me. So now I'm having to sort of remind myself and reinvent, actually, those things are less important to me right now. They might come
Yeah.
back again in the future, but right now what's important to me are these other things that are maybe less tangible or less even understood by other people, but they're still important to me now.
When I kind of got the idea to open the co-working space, I feel like I girl bossed so hard that I burnt myself out, couldn't even see beyond what was in my periphery, and I wasn't enjoying myself anymore. One of the other big turning points in my career too was when I met my current partner. And I met him right when I was closing the space and everything. There was a lot of responsibility and decisions. And I remember saying to him, like over the first, let's say six months to a year of us dating, I said, you really helped me remember what else there is happening in the world. It's like making a new friend or dating somebody new. You go, oh yeah, it is nice. Like let's go have a picnic. When you're so in the thick of things, you forget about all of the other exciting things, or you only do it because it's strategic for your current goals. So I really do credit a big part of my recovery to dating and meeting the
Yeah.
right partner.
Yeah, because it sounds like this person is very supportive, but also has a different perspective on life, one that you wanted to remind yourself of or include more of in your life. Because
Yeah.
when you're a business person, that's all that's on your mind.
But there's so much more to life than just
Yeah,
business. And at the end of the day, like every single experience you have, business or not, will inform the decisions you make moving forward. And I truly believe that when you feel good, mind, body, soul, everything will work so much better instead of having to resist things or push, 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 push.
yeah, 100%. What is something that you had to let go of in order to make this pivotal change that you miss? That maybe you feel like, oh man, I had to give up something, even though I know this was the right journey for me. I miss this thing that I gave up.
Okay. So the first thing I can think of, and I feel emotional even talking about it now too. Um, so you would have met Ashley.
Hmm.
Ashley was my very first hire for Make Lemonade. And Ashley supported me. We supported each other a lot through COVID. I'll never forget the first day of like lockdowns and us deciding, okay, we're going to close the space. I said, okay, are you comfortable to be here? Like, you can go home. And she said, I'm not going home until we have a plan. And her and I had a really beautiful working relationship. So it was, I think, a month before I decided to close the co working space. She tells me, I have to tell you, I got a new job. And reality is, it was the right decision. Of course, we cried right there because we both knew this was the right thing to do. And sometimes that's the hardest thing of understanding. Like when you're so deeply in tune with what feels right and what doesn't, you're like, oh man, this is the right next step.
Yeah.
Um,
And she's
so I
lovely
think,
too. You must have really missed
yes,
that connection.
yes. And I think what happened, it allowed me to start making decisions for myself instead of running the business thinking about me and my other full time employee, Ashley, of course. Um, and I miss, of course, the times that we got to work together. I miss our working relationship. Of course, it also left so much space for our friendship to actually blossom into a real friendship instead of a employee-employer relationship. I just did her wedding flowers last month.
Oh,
It was
lovely.
it was so beautiful the way everything came full circle.
Oh,
But I do
wonderful.
miss like having my co-pilot in the whole thing too.
Yeah. And my opposite question is maybe looking back, what would your future self be proud of you for right now? Like that they are doing that maybe are scary or difficult or, whatever. What would you be proud of yourself for?
Yeah. I definitely don't think my younger self could have like pictured this at all. I think she would have my younger self would be most proud, inspired and curious about the fact that I am identifying more and more as an artist. Because that was just something I never felt I was qualified for to be and claim stake in this position. Um, and I mean, again, like I mentioned, like I've worked with so many cool clients in the floristry world that were not even fathomable to like Rachel last year or the year previous. And yeah, I've been doing a lot of it scared and not 100% sure of.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because we don't often know what the future is going to hold. Do you have like a system or a way that you sort of bring yourself back on track when sometimes life happens and self-doubt kicks in or reality kicks in or people say stuff. Is there a way that you sort of bring yourself back?
Oh, that is a really great question. Self doubt, it creeps up. I think the most interesting thing for me, really recognizing self doubt in play, was I think in my first year of floristry. And I had done so much planning for this, let's say, a weekend event. I don't remember exactly. And I remember going through all the scenarios, worst case scenarios, so I was prepared. And okay, we move forward. I've picked up the flowers. I'm on my way back to the studio to deal with the flowers I've picked up. And self-doubt creeps in and goes, what if you didn't get enough flowers? And I thought, oh my God, like, where did this come from? And I was like, we've planned, like, we're okay. And I thought, I really remember reflecting, going, that is so interesting. Like, it will find a crack no matter what. And it won't even be logical sometimes. And the power of this tiny little thought will have on your entire feeling. So I think when those things come up, I think it's important to just name it. And like, even if it's just to myself, it was just, and I've told this story to other people, like it will find a way. So instead of letting it fester and be like deep down, I think it's about going, okay, this really crummy thought has come up. Like, let's bring it to the surface. I also have a note in my phone, and I named it one time. I was feeling entirely anxious, and it said something like things that make me feel anxious. And it was like when I haven't had enough sleep, when I haven't eaten enough, when I haven't drank enough water, when I haven't prepared, and just naming like, why am I feeling this way? So now it's part of, I guess, my process in terms of feeling more confident with jobs moving forward. What can I do to prepare myself? And then to understand, okay, if things don't go my way, maybe it was out of my control. And that's okay. Like, that's part of life, and just try my best to move forward.
Okay, quick challenge before you go. What is something that you've given up to get closer to the life that you want?